Yeah, well, about 10 days ago, we had really explosive fire growth conditions. And we get those when we have, a lot of instability in the atmosphere. And so we had those kinds of conditions and the fire really blew up. And we had kind of a first round of evacuations in Chester and Lake Almanor area. And then things kind of settled in. We had some more stability in the atmosphere and the smoke really packed in. And that really subdued the temperatures and the fire behavior in general. And it's just a real typical pattern we have in the summer of these kind of, as you know, being the meteorologist, right? And so we made a ton of progress on the fire during that week that we had the stability. We got a huge amount of firing done. We really secured a huge portion of the fire's perimeter. But then once it even rained up there a little, and so people really thought that we'd made some progress. But it's just the fuels are so dry, just that historic dryness, that pretty much it only took a couple of days of unstable weather, hot weather, for the fire to really take off again. And so we saw that a couple of days ago where the fire crossed a couple of our containment lines and really just exploded in size. And now it's a whole different beast.
So when you said it passed your containment line, so are you actually in the firefight with this? What is your what are you doing in the fight itself, or do you have any role in that? Are you taking photography or?
I work for a private company, and so we're providing fire contracting crews, so hand crews, fire engines that are working on the fire. I work internally with our company, kind of informing our operations. To give our firefighters additional intel. Yeah.
So talk to us about some of your tweets and what you mentioned in your tweets about the concern that you have right now.
Well, I think what we're seeing right now is just fire conditions that we're used to seeing in places like Idaho or the Northern Rockies, where we are used to seeing big crown fires run for tens of thousands of acres. And the fire right now is just not controllable, and I think that's something that's important for the public to hear, is that it doesn't matter how many large air tankers we have or bulldozers. We've had 5,000 or more firefighters on this fire, and as long as the weather conditions are as dry and unstable and hot as they are, there's really just about nothing we can do. We might be able to finish securing the parts of the fire that haven't blown up. We might be able to kind of hold on to the heels of the fire or maybe some of the flanks of the fire, but there's no way for us to stop the head of a fire like this. And I guess my concern just looking out is that there's no real end in sight for this. We're early in the season relatively. We still have the whole month of August. It's hot, it's dry, the fire's doing whatever it wants, and there's just not much we can do. I think the best we can do right now is to try not to kill firefighters and to make sure people stay out of the fire's way. But until we have a change in conditions, there's really not a lot that firefighters can do against it.
Speaking of changing conditions, red flag warnings in effect today and tomorrow for stronger winds. What are you going to be doing in the next 24 hours in response to these strong winds?
I think we're just looking, I'm not officially working for the fire, so I'm not involved in their decision making, but I think we all just are looking out. It's like, well, how far can this thing go? The biggest problem I think with this forecast right now is just that the winds are coming from lots of different directions over the next 2 or 3 days. And typically that's when we see really large growth in the fire. We have a fire today that's running north and opens up a whole bunch of flank on the fire from north to south. If the wind comes from the west tomorrow, then we've got a whole new, what was the flank of the fire becomes the head. So it's a tip. We learn about this pattern in fire behavior school of a frontal passage causing problems like this. So I think we just anticipate major fire growth. And as we know, since we can't fight the head of the fire, when the head's moving all over the place, the fire gets bigger and there's not much we can do but stay out of the way.
So you've been doing this a while, I assume. You seem knowledgeable in this. What do you have to say to those who may not believe maybe in climate change, or that things continue to worsen year after year?
Let me take a minute. Oh, we can
Like,
cut
are
it.
we seeing climate change?
Yeah, I want to talk about it. I just lost my
That's okay.
stride there. So climate change is real. We know that. Firefighters see that firsthand. And I grew up right out in front of where the fire's headed in Westwood. And I've spent my whole career helping manage these forests where the fires are burning. And we're seeing incredible things that no one's ever seen in their lifetime. Areas that we thought we'd thinned well, managed well, that were going to be resilient to fire's just blowing right through them, like we didn't do anything. So, something has changed, and it's real, people. It's real.
Is there anything you want to add that maybe we haven't talked about? Anything maybe in your images or in some of your tweets that people should know?
I guess what I want to say is just that we've had 5,000 firefighters working on this fire for 3 weeks, and it's not spreading for lack of effort on our part to contain it. I see a lot of people kind of commenting on the internet, like, why'd they let it get away, or why don't we have more jet air tankers, or and kind of doubling down, trying to invest in more air tankers or more equipment and more fire suppression. It's not buying us anything at this point. These fires are beyond our control, and it's kind of like, don't blame the firefighters because they didn't. Well, don't blame the firefighters. They're doing the best they can under really incredibly challenging conditions.
If you had to come up with a solution to the problem, because everyone thinks there's some solution or magic way of fixing everything, where would you maybe start if you think there's something?
Well, we need more fire on the landscape. I know that sounds really ridiculous when the entire landscape's on fire, but fire is the only tool we have that can really address the scale of the problem. And it's not that we need little 10-acre prescribed fires here or there. We need burn, 1 million acres a year in California at least to keep in front of fires like this. And unless we get on board with more fire, put on the ground when we want it and under conditions that we choose, we're not going to have forests left to manage. So more fire is the answer.
I spoke to Cal Fire. They mentioned that they haven't in the last 2 years really had the opportunity to do very many fires. It's been dry year round. This year's been one of the worst years they've ever dealt with, from April, May, and June, for being driest as well as warmest on record. So when I asked them something similar, why aren't we doing more maintenance or more prescribed type burns? Their answer was, honestly, we really haven't had the chance. Between snow melt to instant dry, it's been almost nearly impossible to cover that much acreage. What do you have to say to that?
I disagree. I feel like Cal Fire, they're talking a lot about prescribed fire, and they are making some strides in their culture, but they don't prioritize it. They really don't take it seriously. We probably spent at least $100 million so far on the Dixie Fire, and all we have to show for it is a burn up forest. If we spent $100 million on prescribed burning, we would have a forest that was more resilient. And I feel like as a prescribed fire practitioner, if I'm an IC on a wildfire tomorrow and I order $1 million worth of aircraft in the first 4 hours, no one bats an eye. If I'm an IC on prescribed fire and I want to use a Type 1 helicopter, maybe $30,000, there's no way I'm going to get that. So until they're going to put their money where their mouth is, they're just talking about prescribed fire. We really need it to be a priority, not just on paper and words.